A good life is a life built around fulfilling work, play, relationships, and lifelong learning. Welcome to Good Life Conversations, where we explore the stories and strategies of inspiring everyday people who are striving to create a life of purpose, meaning, and connection. Hi there, welcome to this Good Life Conversation. My name is Jay, I'm your host and the founder of Discover Year, and today's guest is Matt Purdey. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Okay, so Matt and I were just chatting. We met because he reached out actually following a virtual conference. Matt lives in Manitoba and he was part of a conference, and I gave a virtual session at the conference. And he thought Discover Year sounded interesting, and he connected to the idea of what we do. So he reached out, which I always love. And then we got to have a quick chat virtually. Still haven't met in person, but we had a quick chat, and Matt has done a lot of really interesting things in his life and in his work. So I thought he'd be a great mentor for our students. So he's been doing this for a couple of years now. And Matt is a career development practitioner.
Correct.
What is that, you say? That is someone who helps other people think about their careers and what they might want to do for work, how might they get there, etc. So very related to a lot of the stuff we do at Discover Year. And Matt works in a few different ways. He works at Red River College Polytechnic in Manitoba. He also does some lecturing and course development at University of Winnipeg. And he has his own, what he might call a side gig. So he has his own company called Forsight Career Coaching, where he does a variety of things, helping communities and people learn about careers and make progress. So busy guy. He's also got 2 kids. He's one of us, one of those people that likes to be really busy. So thanks again for joining us, Matt. And let's launch into our first question, always the same. Tell us about a typical day in the life of Matt Purdey. What time do you get up? Do you have a morning routine? How many hours do you work? What might that look like? How do you wind down? What time do you go to bed?
Fantastic. Thank you. Great introduction. Yes, you covered all the bases. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in or watching this. And yeah, thanks for having me on this Good Life Conversation. So I love this first question because I'm very much a creature of habit, and I have lots of routines. But yeah, a typical routine for me, I start early. So my alarm goes off at 5 and I get up, and I always start my day with a bit of exercise, usually stretching and then a run or stretching and weights. And that's just my personal me time early in the morning, which really just sets me up for the rest of the day. Because if I tackle that thing that I maybe don't want to do, or is maybe the hardest part of my day, if I tackle that first, then everything else seems to just flow really smoothly. So I get that out of the way as fast as I can. Usually that wraps up around 6:15. Then I'm in the kitchen making breakfast, making lunches for the kids, and getting them ready to go to school. We typically are in the car and out of the house by 7:15, 7:30. Drop them off, and then I head downtown to work. So I usually start around 8 and put in a full day. So that's like 8 to 4. I work downtown. It's about a 20-minute commute for me on a good day. And then afterwards, in the evenings or like late afternoon evenings, we'll come home, we'll do a quick family supper. And then depending on the season, yeah, in Winnipeg, winters can be pretty cold. So it's dark and cold, and we'll, throw on a movie or play a game or whatever and relax. Or in the summer, we're outside. I coach my kids soccer. We'll go for bike rides, head to the park, whatever that is, and try to just enjoy as much of that summer as we can. And then evening routines. Yeah, maybe my wife and I'll relax with some television in the evening. This time of year is bad for me because the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs are on at the same time. So I try to get to bed by 10, but that doesn't always happen. So
At least you're well situated in Manitoba, because you don't, like, out here we get the West Coast games. I'm in Ottawa, so the West Coast games are
right.
well beyond my capacity these days in terms of timing, but you're right in the middle. Okay, great. Great, thanks, Matt. Is that safe to say that are you an athlete then? Did you play hockey and or basketball, or do you just like to watch those?
I did play basketball in junior high and high school. I never played hockey, never played organized ice hockey, lots of road hockey, street hockey, and other sports. Football was my probably number one. So I enjoy it all. Like drives my family pretty crazy. If there's anything on TSN, I'll probably tune in.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Okay, thanks. I would love to circle back to this idea of getting the hardest thing done first for you.
Mhm.
Is that something I imagine you learned that over time? How did you navigate to getting to the place where you do that consistently now?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. This is I'll say newish habit. As a high school student, as a university student, that was definitely not the case. I loved my sleep. I would sleep in. It was probably, I don't know, the last 5 to 7 years, maybe I started to think more about it and just wanted to develop healthy habits. I think finding an exercise routine that worked for me was really important. Something I like doing at a time when I like doing it. I tried doing it during the day, but I just didn't like the idea. It took too much time to shower and change and get back to the office or the desk or whatever. I didn't have that kind of time in the middle of the day. So, and by the time I got home, there were too many other things competing for my time. So I tried the early mornings and it's worked.
Hmm. One thing I like about this is there are a few, but one thing I like about this is that it's a demonstration of, I think young people sometimes are misinformed or misunderstand some of the messaging that they get. And one of those things is, make time for yourself, self-care. And for you, it sounds like you really enjoy activity, which is the same for me. And what I think is important about this is that it doesn't always fit into the rest of your life exactly how you want it. And sometimes you have to negotiate with yourself. You have to find new ways of doing things that you really enjoy. And that makes them hard because it sounds to me like you enjoy those things. What's hard about it is doing it at 5 a.m.
It was in the beginning. It was definitely a mental hurdle, that it's so easy to hit the snooze button or I'll do it tomorrow or, and I guess the more I did it, it became easier and I enjoyed it more. And so now I actually am on the other end of the spectrum where if I miss a day, I feel bad, and I'm like, oh man, I got to make that up or I gotta earn that back. I gotta make up for it. And so that like I find that's a really both physically and mentally healthy place to be in.
Yeah. Okay. And so you like to go to bed at 10. So that means you get on average about 7 hours sleep.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And for you, 7 hours, when you do 10 to 5, you feel pretty rejuvenated and you're able to last through the day feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like I said, that morning routine, the exercise, and then just healthy eating and healthy habits throughout the day, that's enough to sustain me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's something that we talk about a lot at Discover. Over the years. We always have, and traditionally speaking, adolescents and young adults have difficulty going to bed. Sometimes it's part of the changes that they
Sure.
most of us undergo. So it's helpful to perhaps hear that at their stage of life, 7 hours might not be okay for you and me too. 7 hours is the right number, but when we were younger, perhaps we probably needed more. So it's important to remember. And 10 p.m. seems like a really difficult goal sometimes for young people, but perhaps achievable.
Hmm.
If not now, maybe later. Okay, that's great. So thanks very much, Matt. And I'd love to know a little bit the next thing that we talk about. So you mentioned coaching your daughter in soccer or daughters in soccer. You mentioned getting outside, doing some physical activities. You like to watch sports. We'd like to hear a little bit about hobbies. Did we name all of them? Or are there other things that you like to do to rejuvenate yourself?
Yeah, so at this stage in my life, I have two young kids, 10 and 7. They're pretty active and I try to keep up with them as much as I can. Um, Outside of the maybe organized sports that I do with them as a family, we're big into camping. So we have a sort of a limited, summer season here in Manitoba. Basically June, July, August is our camping season. So we've got all our long weekends booked. We know where we're going, and we're like hardcore campers, like tenting.
Mm.
None of that, none of that glamping stuff. So yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great just to unwind and unplug from the city and from the work life. And it's just an adventure. The kids, it's a totally different way of life and different routines that you go through during the day, and they find that pretty fun. So
Have you always been a camper, or were you ever a glamper?
I've always been a camper. Yeah, I grew up tenting, and yeah, I can remember those family vacations with my parents, and rediscovering that as an adult with my own kids has been a really fantastic journey. Um, and even my wife too, like she was not a camper. She was a city girl. And I remember the first time we went camping and she sort of went like, this is okay. And I'm
Mm.
like, yes, like we're in, let's go.
You were sitting on the edge of your camping chair the whole time, just hoping she
Yeah,
would go for it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. You reminded me of the first time we went camping with our family, and our now middle guy was 2, I think, and just ran laps around our tent for 7 hours straight, and then woke up screaming from a nightmare in the middle of the night. So we
Oh no.
are scarred. But anyways, someday again, maybe.
Nice.
Okay, very cool. Anything else? Camping, some sports, doing activities with your kids?
Yeah, and then I mean, I don't know if this is a hobby, but we mentioned it at the top of the conversation here. So in my free time, when that happens, yeah, I mean, I chip away and try to build the side hustle, and so it's been a really just great creative outlet for me. It allows me to do more of the work that I love doing and helping people, and yeah, so it's been going for about 5 years now. I started in 2018. And it's been really a really great process. I don't feel the stress of having to, pay my mortgage or put food on the table through this business. So that's a huge relief. But it's definitely been a really great creative outlet and just opportunity to do more of the work I love. So
Hmm.
I consider it a hobby, but yeah.
There's a term that perhaps you've heard of. I've heard in some podcasts and books I've read called harmonious passion, and it's a distinction between people who are workaholics and people who are still working, perhaps in times where other people might prefer to relax, but they gain energy from it, and it's motivating and it's exciting rather than depleting. So it sounds, that's my impression, that is that
Mm.
that's what I'm getting from you. What do you think helps you feel that passion about this work?
Yeah, so first I'll just say that's a new term for me, but it's 100% accurate. I really like that harmonious passion. Um, I, I don't know where I get it from, really. I mean, I'm driven to um spread more of the word and do more of the work. I think, I'm like so many young people out there, young professionals, even mid-career professionals, who have maybe experienced career disruptions over the last 4 years. There's just so many questions out there and myths and job search seems like such a secret process or mysterious process. And to be honest, people don't often get a lot of training in this or have a lot of exposure to this through their academic journeys. And so it's an important skill that the schools and universities don't cover in a great detail. I mean, I think post-secondary institutions have definitely improved since the time I was a student.
Hmm.
And so that's positive, and I think we're headed in the right direction there. But there's a whole bunch of people out there who are not students and still have questions. So yeah, that's what I'm motivated, I guess, by is helping people understand the process, because I know how important it is to unlocking work, which then unlocks everything in life.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, so when you say when you're talking about this process and the skills, you're referring to, just for clarity for our
Mhm.
audience, you're referring to the skills of getting a job, getting a career. Tell us more about that. What are the
Yeah.
skills?
No, good question. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it, right? I mean, it's not it's not just resumes or it's just not cover letters. I mean, I think a lot of people have questions about what kind of career will I enjoy? If I'm going to invest 40 hours a week or 2,000 hours a year doing something, I want it to be rewarding. I want to be excited when I get up and go to work. And so that can be a big question to try and answer. And having someone, who you can bounce ideas off of or give you insights and help point you in a general direction can be really beneficial. It can accelerate that whole process. Understanding the labor market, what employers want, where is their flexibility and where is there not so much flexibility. Um, we talk about the importance of relationships and connections and networks and how to leverage those. And so, um, in one of my classes not long ago, I asked the students I put them in groups and I had them brainstorm. I said, okay, dissect the job search process, come up with every possible step you could take And then we put them in order, and then we sort of put them on the board in like a timeline. And there was like over 40, suggestions on things you could do to get a job, from starting to actually landing a job. And that sort of opened people's eyes to like, it's more than just resumes, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, that's great. I love that idea. And I consistently see so many people, probably like yourself, who I think have some sense of some of the things they could do to get a job, but seem to be blocked by overwhelm is what I feel. Like there's so many and there's so much uncertainty. Am I going to make 10 phone calls and get nothing back, you know? So it's a really difficult thing to do, but I think it's helpful to know to people that there are very specific things you can do. What would you say, from your perspective with the people you work with? What's the thing that people who are successful do the best in
Mm.
this job search?
Oh, that's a long list. I'd try to pick one. Um, I mean, if I had to try and summarize it, I would say they engage with the process, um, meaning they take initiative, they ask questions, they experiment, um, they give themselves that room or that freedom to try different things. They expect a bit of failure or rejection. I think that's inherently part of the process. They're kind to themselves. They do that self-care in order to, come back the next day or the next week with the right energy. um, they're flexible. They understand that one step might not be the final step. It might be the first in a series of moves towards their ideal work, or what they want to do. They don't wait until, the end of their program, or when they absolutely need a job. Like they're proactive, I guess I would say, with the process. So um I hope that wasn't too sneaky of an answer. I started with one and then unpacked it.
Well, I think it's good. I welcome it because I appreciate that it was an unrealistic question, and I think it's helpful, hopefully, at least for our students. A lot of things you've named are things that we explore in the program and that we challenge our students to consider and to make attempts at. So I appreciate that, and I think that it's helpful to know that you can't just do one thing and everything will fall into place. It's a
No,
process.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I sometimes I'll draw the parallels to, like, a research project, right? One of your teachers gave you a research project, right? If you left it until 11 o'clock the night before and then tried to do it, there's going to be issues, right? You're going to come up against a few walls. Um, but if you plan it out and you take little steps and uh, sort of chip away at it, then you can achieve that with much less stress, maybe none. And so, yeah, similar to job search, you can take steps to reduce the stress involved, for sure.
I had in the last week, we've got a couple of jobs that have been posted, like summer employment for us,
Mm,
and it's been a really long time. But I had two phone calls because my phone number is posted with the jobs, and I had two people phone me up and say, "Hello, is this mentor you?" And I'm calling about a job posting, and we actually had just filled the positions.
mm,
But I was so happy and impressed that those people called, and I thought to myself, well, these people will get a job pretty quickly, probably. But it's important to know that not every call you make will turn into a success, but it's the process of learning how to do that and getting better, which is really helpful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Kudos to those people who picked up the phone. That kind of initiative is really hard to demonstrate on a resume, right? But it usually lands well with employers, and anything you can do to sort of stand out or get a leg up, I think it's worth exploring.
Yeah. Speaking of the idea of, understanding that there is inherent failure in something like this, the process of getting a job or building a career, one of the questions we like to ask to our mentors is, what's a recent or important failure that you've had, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, no, I like that question. And I've got I think I've got an answer. Something jumped into my head right away. So, as a career development practitioner, I like to think that I understand, the job search process. And whenever I've needed to apply for a job or looked for a change, I feel pretty good about the applications that I've put in, and my chances overall. But last month in April, there was a chance for our industry is going through a bit of a growth period, and it's really focused on standardization, meaning they want consistency in terms of certification and credentialing across the country. And so there's work being done to pilot this national certification program, and they were looking for participants to pilot it, and they wanted 20 people from across the country. So I said, okay, I want to try this, and I worked on my application. Of course, I needed a resume and a cover letter as part of the process, and I thought, okay, this is in my wheelhouse. And so I put together what I thought was a good application and submitted it. And unfortunately, I wasn't selected as part of that pilot program. So while I didn't get the outcome that I was hoping for, I guess what I learned from it is, and I think I knew this already, is that, yeah, there is going to be some rejection, and you're not going to get every role that you apply for. Even professional, career coaches and career development practitioners who do this for a living, we experience rejection. We don't get every role or position that we apply for. And so, yeah, so I took that on board, and we're moving forward. That's okay.
One of the things I like about this type of rejection, oftentimes for me, it's like if I'm working to get a client, let's say in my professional and with like corporate groups, and I
Mm.
don't get it, it's a nice refresher almost. It's painful for a minute, but it like even that amount of time it's painful for, I find the more we do it, gets smaller and smaller, and it's a really helpful humbler. It keeps us humble if we can manage it well, I think.
It is, yeah. And I, if I look for a silver lining in that situation, I think then, great. Like if the people who pilot this program, they're going to be quality people, and the program will be better for it. And I'll have a chance to maybe get certified later on down the road as part of another group. But yeah, like you said, it stung at the beginning, but that time to feeling okay again was shorter than it maybe would have been if
Hmm.
I had less experience with rejection and failure.
Yeah. Um, okay, so we've talked quite a bit about a little bit about the nature of your work and the fact that you enjoy what you do and you do it in different ways, in different places with different people. So I'd love to know now if there's an important lesson, kind of an overarching lesson or something specific you learned about work that you'd like to share.
Mm. Yeah, I could almost maybe even connect this to my previous answer a little bit. I'll try. So, when I think about when I was a student, either high school or university, and you often wanted to be like the smartest person in the room, and academic achievement was high on the list of priorities. I think in the world of work, I try not to be the smartest person in the room. I want to surround myself with people who are doing what I do at a higher level, so that I can learn and I can grow and I can continue to improve my craft. Um,
Mm.
and so, yeah, so I think, finding people who are maybe a couple of years ahead of you in terms of careers, and either partnering with them, or collaborating with them, or even just doing an information interview with them, even just observing them, um, allows you to learn where there's room for growth in your own skill set and your own work.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sounds like what we might call the mindset of a lifelong learner.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's accurate. Um, I never want to be at a place where I feel like I've got nothing left to learn. I think that's where stagnation, sets in, and you start to maybe lose some of the joy or satisfaction you get from the work. If it's all just automatic, and you're not being challenged or engaged in new ways, yeah, I would find that hard.
And yet, I like this because, we live in a world where, as far as I can tell, based on what we digest from the internet and social media, young people are looking into a screen in a world where it seems like these people they're following have it all figured out. And it seems like the better way to be is to have it all figured out. So you already articulated some of the reasons why you appreciate being a lifelong learner and surrounding yourself with smart people. But is there anything that you would, to a person who said, well, look at all these people on my phone, they have all figured out. Seems like it's going great for them.
Mm.
What would you respond?
Um, I I would say like nobody has it figured out. We're all doing the best we can with where we are and what we have available to us. Um, I view social media as like a highlight reel of someone's life. I take that with a very large grain of salt. And I think, yeah, for every, celebratory post or achievement they share, um, I know, and I sort of probably understand the fact that a lot went on behind the scenes, just based on my own experiences. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm super active. I maintain a social media presence on LinkedIn and in that world because it's directly related to the work I do. Um, and just from personal experience, I know that every win comes with losses, challenges, adversities, struggles. Um, so yeah, so I think that's maybe just it is it a reminder to myself that I'm going to celebrate them and congratulate them and that's a great achievement. But I also realize that outside of that, they have a lot going on. We know this much of what they have going on behind the scenes. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I like the idea of being happy when we achieve things and keep looking forward, keep understanding that we're all continue learning. Nobody has it figured out, but we're figuring it out a little bit more each year. And those of us that have lived a reasonable amount of time, or perhaps beyond our teens, I think most of us have learned that. At least for me, I have.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's, social media can be just a little bit misleading in that way, maybe a lot misleading in that way, when the glimpses you get into people's lives are just these positive moments and none of the transactions or the events that happen in between. So there's a significant amount of information missing in those stories for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the topic of social media, so one of the questions we like to ask is around relationships. And in today's world, a lot of people, and certainly especially perhaps young people, have
Mm,
developed relationships online more so than ever before in human history.
mm.
And as a segue into that, I'd love to know if there's a lesson you've learned about relationships or a story that helps you learn a lesson about relationships you'd like to share.
Sure, yeah. So two things I wanted to say on that. One, I think for students, young professionals, um, the new world of work, which involves remote work and hybrid work and work from home arrangements and things like that. I understand the appeal. But I think for those early years of people's careers, um, try your best to be in the office or place of work, wherever that might be. You will learn so much about yourself and your approach to work. And then giving yourself to not be the smartest person in the room. Because if you're at home by yourself, chances are you're the smartest person in the room. But if you go into the office, you're going to be surrounded by all these other people who have been doing it, longer and probably better. So huge learning opportunities there as well. And then the relationships that you build while you're in the office, can often catapult or boost your career, either short term, long term. But the story I wanted to share, sorry, I went off on a quick tangent there, was when I was younger. Um, I didn't we didn't have FOMO back then. We didn't call it FOMO, but I certainly had it looking back, that sort of fear of missing out on things. And it sort of manifested itself in a couple of different ways. So like I would always wait till the last minute to commit to anything because I wanted to see
Hmm.
like what's happening on Saturday night before I decide where I'm going to go. I want to see what's happening, and not miss out on anything. I would stay out late because I never wanted to be the last or the first one to go, scared I was going to miss out on something. Thought it might not happen again, but it always happened again. um, and I would prioritize the wrong people. Like I would prioritize friends or these new acquaintances, um, instead of partners and family members. And um, yeah, so I learned that those good times often come back around, usually pretty quickly, um, and that the relationships that mattered required like investments of time and appreciation and respect, um, and they proved to be much more rewarding down the road. So
Hmm. Can I ask how did you come to realize that lesson?
yeah, it certainly wasn't like a light bulb moment or a overnight realization. It was just over the years, I guess, of maybe feeling bad about something the next day, or maybe having an argument with someone. Um, yeah, it would just be, I guess, the over time, um, I realized that, those good times do come back around. You're not going to miss out on anything. Or the one time I did miss out, I didn't go to that event, that party, that gathering. Nothing particularly interesting happened, anyways.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, I'd love to talk. I think this will lead to perhaps a multitude of smaller topics or different topics, but one of the questions we like to ask is about your favorite place you've ever traveled to. So
Mm.
where was it and why did you love it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I always have one answer for this just because I spent so much time there. But um, I'm going to say Jakarta, Indonesia. So in my youth, I dropped out of university to go teach English abroad, and ended up landing in Jakarta, Indonesia. And the plan was to stay there for a year, but that turned into a decade. And the reason I like it so much is, yeah, because I got off the tourist track. You spend that much time in a place, and you peel back the layers a little bit more. You dig deeper into the people, the culture, the values, their way of life. And it was a great learning experience to see how life was in another part of the world. Learned a lot about myself as well, and what was important to me, and my worldviews that all changed or evolved. Um, and I think the thing that stands out to me the most about Indonesia in particular was just it seemed like the land of contrasts to me. It was rich and poor, and it was hot and wet, like, or dry and wet at the same time. Um, it was the cities were mega cities, 10, 12 million people in a small space, but in the rural areas, there was nobody, and just so all of these contrasts um, just fascinated me. Yeah, and then as life went on, I met a girl, got married, and so it's still a big part of my life. But
Yeah. Wow, 1 year to 10. I've heard similar stories before from people. And then there's a couple things I'd love to circle back to there real quickly. But one
sure.
is, you stayed there 10 years and then you decided to move back to where I'm assuming, we didn't talk about this, but where I'm assuming you grew up, which was Manitoba. So what
Yeah,
led you to making that decision?
yeah. Yeah, I always joke, and I think I've joked with you too. Like, my gap year turned into a gap decade, and but I wouldn't change it. Like, if I had to do it all over again. What brought me back was, I guess I was just at a different point in my life by that time after I got married over there. Um, we started talking about starting a family and where we wanted to live. And so um, living in Canada just presented itself as a good option. And then we can holiday, back in Indonesia. We still have a lot of family there, obviously. So we try to get back there as much as we can. Um, and I did move back to like, my parents are 5 minutes up the road. So I am pretty much in the same community, same little neighborhood that I grew up in. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so we quickly hit the button on this whole I dropped out of university thing, and I think that's perhaps a relevant thing to just circle back to for our audience. So now you have graduated from university, so I'm assuming that happened when you came back, but tell us a little bit about the decision to drop out, if you don't mind. Why did you
Yeah.
do that? What happened? And then how did you end up graduating?
Yeah. Why did I drop out? So I don't know what it's like in Ontario, but in Manitoba, we have this thing called University One, which is kind of like just an intro year. You take your math, science, English, psychology courses. Um, and so I did that. I started with U1. It's supposed to be 1 year. I stretched it into two because I didn't know what major I wanted to choose or what I wanted to do. Like, people were asking me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I have no idea. Um, so I thought this was just a waste of my time and energy and money at the time. And I was working with someone who did this teach and travel thing. And I said, that sounds awesome. Sign me up. So I dropped out and got certified to teach English abroad and went there again originally for a year. And I've mentioned how that story unfolded. Um, yeah, and so then I was about 5 years that I was abroad, and then I thought, okay, I better get back on this university track. And so I did probably half, nah, 3/4 of my degree via distance ed. So while I was over there, as many of the courses I could. And then there was just a handful that I needed to do in person. So when I got back, I had a semester of in-person studies to complete the degree. And so I ended up with a Bachelor of Arts majoring in geography and minoring in philosophy. Like, go figure. And I mean, I joke that, university was great. It taught me how to learn and how to develop, academic habits. Um, and I originally felt bad about maybe not working in a field where I was using my degree, but over time that disappeared. So
Hmm. Yeah, this whole idea of using our degree is one of my least favorite points of conversation that is the most persistent in our world today.
mm,
So, I mean, what better place than to go halfway around the world to learn about geography? I mean, a very
yeah,
different geography compared to Manitoba that you'd find in Indonesia. So I think that's interesting.
it was. Yeah, no, I would agree. I've got stories of I was on a volcano when it erupted, and talk about learning about geography. Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that because for many reasons, but it's another reminder that people can go back to school. You know, there's this real deep fear in our society that if you leave now, you'll never go back, and that they can do it in a variety of different ways, including distance learning. At their own pace, and there's all different ways that that can be done. Okay, thanks, Matt. This has been
Yeah,
great. I could have more questions for you, but I'd love to wrap it up because we're just kind of running out of time here.
no worries.
And the last question we like to ask is kind of brings everything together because this is called Good Life Conversation. The aim is to help our audience think about the world beyond high school as more than just a job and paying bills. It's all these fun things you get to do and finding meaning and purpose and relationships and work. So, in a world, as we discussed, could be complicated for young people seeing the world through social media and new technology. What advice would you offer our audience in terms of creating a good life for themselves?
Yeah. I mean, I can totally relate to the pressures of being, a young professional, high school graduate, thinking about post-secondary life, and people asking you these big questions and not having a way to answer them. I can absolutely relate to that. Um, so my advice would be, try and alleviate that pressure, or don't put extra pressure on yourself to have all the answers at this stage in the game. My 20s were a wonderful time of learning and discovery and curiosity. Some of it was planned learning, some of it was just spontaneous life learning. But the person I was when I was 18, 19, 20 is completely different than the person I was when I, turned 30, and probably again when I turned 40. So give yourself the time and space and freedom to explore as many options as you can. One of my big gripes with that question of what do you want to be when you grow up is that young people have such a narrow perspective of what's possible. right?
Mhm.
You know what your parents do, and like firefighters and doctors and teachers and nurses, because those are the people you've interacted with as a kid. But there are jobs out there today that didn't exist 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And it's because people were curious, because people ask questions, that those jobs even exist. Um, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Employed. But whatever that is, you're gonna figure that out. Um, so yeah, be curious, engage with the process, like I mentioned earlier, and give yourself the time and space to make mistakes and learn. Nothing's permanent. You can recover from any of those mistakes. So
Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, take the time, explore, be curious, find stuff you love, and then perhaps one day you will be harmoniously passionate about your work, and you'll do it on the side for fun. Maybe.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. Well, yeah, create your own definition for the good life. I think that's beautiful. Careers are one of the most beautiful things people can build, and the good life would be up there as well. So
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate you doing this. That was fun for me, and I'm sure our audience will appreciate all of your stories and your advice.
thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. This has been another Good Life conversation. We hope to see you at the next one.